Welcome back to the DRV Law Show. I'm your host, divorce attorney Dennis Vetrano, and today we have Samantha Boss with us. She's a certified divorce mediator and coach. She empowers moms to protect themselves and their children's future by providing expert guidance on parenting plans and navigating high conflict exes.
Welcome to the DRV Law Show with your host, divorce attorney Dennis Vetrano, talking divorce, relationships, and adding value to your life.
So welcome, Sam, to the show. Let's just get right into it. Listen, I saw one. Look, by the way, I got to start off with, I love your content and I love what you're doing. And the I Do Too episode with Jenny Garth looked awesome. But I saw this video of yours that basically intimated, look, even if you're in a divorce with a narcissist, a toxic person who's doing everything they can to sabotage the situation, there are many mistakes that you also make that can make it worse.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk to you about, I know you went through that situation. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. What mistakes can you try to avoid if you know you've got that person on the other side in your divorce case?
Well, I think first it's recognizing that you have somebody like that on the other side. I was resistant. Right. I thought, okay, I was just married to you, just sleeping with you like a couple weeks ago. Right. How is it going to turn this ugly this fast? Maybe this is just a bad week. Maybe this is just a bad month. I kept making excuses that I wasn't in a high conflict divorce. There's no way I have children with this person. There's no way I was just married to this person. So I say resistance was my biggest problem. I wasn't looking at the patterns. I wasn't looking at this was his second divorce and he was well-versed. Yeah. I was coming in behind the eight ball for sure. I think not recognizing the signs and making excuses for the signs of I'll be able to make this work. No matter what he does, I can make this a smooth divorce. I can make this smooth co-parenting. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Right. No. I just was resistant to obvious signs that were right in front of my face because I wasn't, I didn't know what a high conflict divorce was. I thought they were all the same.
So what were some of the signs that people should be looking out for to say hey, I better brace myself and hold on because this is a direction it's going to go? Because I think, it's insidious, if that's the right word, of how they can just morph into this person, or have they been that person the whole way?
Well, I think that's the number one key is instantaneous change of behaviors, whether it's a parent that goes from worker bee to 100% invested into children all of a sudden, or somebody that never really cared about finances all of a sudden is watching every single penny. Somebody that says, hey, let's do this together. And then they've had 16 consults with attorneys. They don't want to turn paperwork in. They stall tactic everything. They want to broadcast to the whole community that you are an absolute shit show. They want to turn your friends and family against you and be the victim. I think anytime you have somebody go through rapid behavior change is a red flag that you are getting ready to go down a slippery, dangerous, high conflict divorce, and prepare yourself because they're not going to slip back into that fake person that they were. This is who they are. They've really they've let the shell come off and they are showing you, okay, you are wanting to leave me. Disloyalty has begun. I'm going to show you, I'm going to punish you for being disloyal to me. Right. And the punishments come one after the other. And you just have to see them. And I think I made excuses because, and this is where a lot of my clients, women, they draw to themselves. He's treating me this way and I'm the one that picked him. And I feel so dumb that I picked him. And I have so much shame and guilt with that I'm not going to own up to what's really right in front of me because I picked this person. And that would have to have some self-reflection that I picked a bad egg. And a lot of women aren't ready for that in that phase.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's so unfair. I feel like I see those videos all the time. Well, you chose poorly. You chose an asshole like this or hey, wait a second. You don't know what it's like to be in it because I think those, say covert narcissists or whatever, those sorts of people are so good at cloaking and smoke screening everything they're doing. And these are people who will do this over a 20-year marriage. And then you're like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think honestly, for me, I came from a great family, a loving, all grandparents, parents, I'm still married. I came from a great family and he slowly picked that apart that was bad. He didn't have come from a great family. He just totally warped my brain so quickly. And I believed him
Yeah.
because with all the warping was also this grandiose, oh my gosh, you're amazing. You're beautiful. I need you to help raise my other child. I can't live without you. You're the most important thing to me. And I was just like, oh, I can go help him. I can go fix him. And then
Right.
that true behavior was always there from the beginning. I just had blinders on. I just did not pay attention to it. And then when the divorce started, it 10x. I mean, it just 10x. It was just everything was bad. Everything I did was bad. I crossed the street wrong. I couldn't parent children right. I wasn't doing anything right
Right.
in the community. Like he was out for the jugular on all parts of me. Nothing was off limits.
So
Nothing.
looking back, what are the things because that's hard. I mean,
Oh
how do
yeah.
you distinguish the you have somebody on the one hand saying, "Oh, you're beautiful, I love you, you're amazing," and then like kind of like
Like
in a way
switch.
like almost like and I always say to clients in these situations, like if they're trying to push you off onto a proverbial island,
Mhm.
separate you from friends and family and stuff like that, you got that's got to be a
Well,
red flag.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't even know there were people like that. Again, maybe
Yeah.
it was my upbringing. I didn't have people like that in
Yep.
my life. I didn't have people that treated people like that. So like
Yep.
I just thought, oh, this is what marriage is. Like you go off on your own. And because we got married after 60 days. I know, red flag.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was this thing of like, I didn't know these behaviors that even existed. I didn't know what a narcissist was. I didn't know really what trauma from childhood, how it would affect you later. I didn't have trauma that in my
Right.
childhood. Like I
Right.
just didn't know these type of people were walking around putting this facade on to
Yeah.
pull you in and then their true colors. Like I didn't have people like that in my life. So I was completely uneducated in that whole spectrum of type of personalities. And I fell for it hook, line, and sinker, got pregnant right away. So then I was in it.
Yeah.
Then I'm
Yeah.
in it.
Right.
There's
Right.
no getting out of it. You're married and you got a kid. And here's my parents who have been together, 30 some years at that point. I'm like, okay, this is what we do. We go through rough patches and the
Yeah.
rough patches just got more and more. And I think so. The warning signs to me are, when they try to change you, and I wish this would be a class in high school or college where it's like, learn yourself, learn your values, learn your morals. When
Yes.
someone tries to change them, that's not a good person.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I wish it was just more, we would teach people more about themselves and to be more confident with their own decisions themselves, because
Yeah.
that's where my clients, they come broken,
Yeah.
shattered, crumbled to pieces because of this person. And we're rebuilding them and helping them out the door. But yeah, I think it's just knowing yourself. And anytime they try to put you on that island, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Run
Yeah. Yeah.
instantly if you can.
And it's funny because it's tough to distinguish. I mean, I always tell people you want to be with a partner who makes you the best you can be.
Absolutely.
So do they want to help you be your best? Of course, but that's different than changing someone.
Right. Right. Well, I think it's just like, my husband now is support. I call him like support staff. He's going to support me in whatever I do.
Yep.
He's not gonna say you shouldn't do that, or I think that's wrong, or he's just gonna be like, I'm here to support you and let you fail and I'll be there. Let you succeed and I'll clap you up. And
Right.
I think with my first husband, it was like I couldn't dress right. I couldn't have my hair long enough. I couldn't
Right.
wear the right perfume. Like everything was wrong. It had to be tailored to where I had no input in my own life whatsoever. And at first,
Yeah.
again, I was young and dumb. I thought it was flattering. Oh, look at this man. He's taking care of me. Oh, he's really
Right.
jealous. Oh, look at him. And then I got around it long enough and I'm just like, this is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I can't even breathe right. And he's
Yeah.
down my throat about everything. So
Right.
that's when I knew it was time to leave. And then for some reason, I thought, okay, if I leave this marriage, this will be different in co-parenting. Oh no, sister.
Yeah.
He carried it right
Yeah.
on over. He didn't
Yeah.
miss a beat. He stayed that same person forever. And again, I had resistance because I married him. So I'm like, okay, if I
Yeah.
just do this, if I just do that, if I just do this, he'll stop. Eight
Right.
years, Dennis, 8 years. I kissed a man's ass who treated me like shit, thinking that tomorrow will be the day he stops. Tomorrow, if I just do this enough, he will stop.
Yeah.
Never in 8 years.
Yeah. Now I want to highlight the thing we just talked about a couple of minutes ago. You're pointing and saying you shouldn't do this, you should do that. If anybody is trying to control you, almost like that parent-child relationship,
Mm-hmm.
like literally finger wagging at you and telling you what you should and shouldn't do, that is never a healthy circumstance.
Nope.
Ever, ever, ever.
No,
At least when it's with two partners.
and it just screams utter insecurity in that person. I mean,
Oh
now
my
that I'm
God,
so
yes.
well versed in this now, I just
Yeah.
think what a little man my ex-husband was, what so
Yeah.
lacking self-esteem he had, such an inner child was just broken, you know, and it's just like, and lashing out and just, you know, totally talking down, not just to me, to peers and community. Like
Yep.
he was just better than everybody, allegedly, but he really deep down had some fucked up issues that he never dealt with and
Yeah.
never matured emotionally, you know, and was just stuck at this age of young childhood and just punish people left and right. And
Yeah.
again, I just wasn't versed in this. And I think there's a lot of people that we don't do a good enough job of asking people about their childhood
Yep.
before we get married. And
Yep.
are they willing to work on some things that might not have been perfect and well? I think that's a mistake that a lot of us make too in relationships.
Yep. Well, I think we don't take enough time really. Well, I start with knowing yourself and learning who
100%.
you are
Yes.
first.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to partner with someone else and even more significant, if you're going to pledge your life to someone, have
Yep.
kids, etc., knowing them. I mean, inside, out, backwards, forward, sideways. And I think you raise a good point, like how they, him or her, treats a stranger, a
Yes.
coworker, a peer, somebody on their basketball team. Like,
Yeah.
how do they conduct themselves with people? And I think you can usually, I think it speaks volumes when you see how they react in the worst circumstance.
Yes.
So you're pissed off at the grocery store, and the grocery store clerk like does something you don't like, or overrings your item or whatever. How do they react?
Yeah. And the zero self-reflection, you know, if
Ooh,
I look
yeah.
back to all of our fights that we had in our marriage, everything was my fault. Ask him, he'll tell you. You know,
Yep.
there was never like, hey, maybe I came home grouchy. Hey, maybe I slept wrong. Hey, maybe I'm mad
Right.
about something else and I'm punishing you for it. Never. Everything was my fault. And again, that went
Yep.
on into co-parenting too. Nothing was his fault. You know, the kids misbehaved at school, mom's fault. You know, the kids
Yep.
talked back to him at his house under his guidance for 3 days. It's my fault. You know, like
Yeah.
nothing, there was no self reflection by him or anybody. And that went into with lawyers and everything. And that
Yeah.
was where I had the blinders on. You know, he would slowly in the divorce, everything was Sam. Sam did this, Sam did that. And it was like,
Yeah.
I was playing defense from filing. As soon as I filed, I went into defensive mode because he was on the attack of like, she did this, she did this, she did this. And my head was just spinning. I'm like, I thought we just wanted divorced. I didn't know we were
Yep.
dragging up shit from fucking 4 years ago and 10 weeks ago. Like, how does that play into a divorce? But it sure as shit did.
Yeah. And here's the thing. That's really the core issue of what I wanted to get to with you. Being on defense. I think when you're in a toxic relationship with someone like that, say narcissist, et cetera, abuser, what have you, there's always a focus on how we defend what they're doing. I
Mm-hmm.
think and puts us in a situation where we're on our heels from day one, being reactive, not proactive. So
Yes.
when you said in your piece, like, "Hey, I did a lot of shit wrong. There were mistakes I made throughout the process that helped lead it to a more contentious situation." So how can you be proactive in a situation like that and take the right steps so you can do everything you can to
Right.
bring down the emotions, like make it less acrimonious?
And cut the cost. I think first and
Right.
foremost, understanding the divorce process. Like I was so blind, and I say this and people laugh, but it was true. This is how naive I was. I thought divorce was like Young and the Restless when they fold the blue piece of paper up and you unfold it and you sign it. And it's like you turn it in and you're good.
Yep.
I
Yep.
literally thought I grew up watching Young and the Restless, Guiding Light. I thought that was how you get divorced, right? Jack Abbott got divorced 6 times in the years that I watched it, right? It's
Yep.
not like that. So I think being educated about the process, like, okay, there's filing and then there's mediation and there's, you know, filling out paperwork and disclosures and all these things. I think understanding it before you jump
Yeah.
into it would really help you navigate that. There's some people that go in and be like, well, why am I not divorced yet? I'm like, oh,
Right.
sister, you filed 6 weeks ago. You
Right.
got some months to go, honey. You know, like
Yep.
they
Yeah.
don't understand the process. You know, why is my lawyer not calling me back? Well, your lawyer also has 15 to 16 other cases going on right
Yeah.
now. And, you know, he knows that you don't really have anything going on. So he's not going to call you back. Like they
Right.
don't understand the process. And
Yeah.
at the end of it, all of us, every single one of us getting divorced will end up if they tie a child agreement and people are fighting so much at the beginning and
Yeah.
they have this resistance from the high conflict parent. You don't realize you don't even know what the end goal is because you
Yeah.
just want divorced. Do you think that's the end goal? The
Yep.
end goal is your parenting plan and your financial affidavit. That's your end goal.
Yep.
not the divorce. What does your paperwork say at the end? That's the
Yeah.
end. And when you don't know what that even is, and you're starting a process and you don't know what it is, like that's where you're behind the eight ball. And again, this was
Yeah.
his second divorce for me. So he was already like, I already know what's cooking. I
Oh
already know
yeah.
what paperwork. So he was distracting me with all this bullshit.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what a parenting plan was. I had
Yep.
no idea. So I think getting an education about parenting plans, what do they have? What should it include? How can I make it grow with my child? Understanding your finances. Where are the
Yep.
bodies buried? Where are the skeletons? What's your name on?
Yep.
What is your name
Yep.
not on? How much do you owe on that? And that's another one. But I think also picking the right attorney to match you and your
Yeah.
case. And I think not all attorneys are created equal. I don't think any client and attorney relationship is the same. So if you're getting advice from your girlfriend, her case was different than yours, honey. She maybe divorced somebody different. And so you got to
Yeah.
make sure you're picking an attorney that fits your case, not your personality per se, but your case,
Yep.
and making sure that their office fits your case and they can
Hmm.
handle your type of case.
And the funny part about that is we get that all the time. They're like, oh, like we want X or Y or Z done. And it's like, hey, like there's a process here.
Yeah.
I think fitting the personality is, and I'll tell clients on a regular basis during consultations, I'll say, like, look, I'm not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, right?
Preach.
But you've got to, but essentially when you go in the door at that office and you have a consultation with a lawyer, you're gonna know it. You don't
Right.
need legal expertise to know how you feel. You
Right.
feel
Well,
comfortable with that lawyer, you don't.
yeah, and I think that's one thing that women in abusive relationships need to hear clearly. When you're
Yeah.
leaving that abusive relationship and you go into an attorney's office and they become your knight in shining armor in like 3 seconds, pause a little bit and make sure
Yeah.
still that attorney, I mean, because anybody can give you lip service. You got to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that attorney is well versed in your type of case. And
Yeah.
again, my first attorney, I picked a personality that fit me, but not my case. He made
Right.
me feel warm and fuzzy and protected. But
Right.
he but in front of my ex-husband, they were bros. And I'm like, whoa, this is not what I need.
Yeah.
And my last attorney, Helen, she was a badass. Her and I were not, we were too much alike. We butted heads a lot,
Yeah.
but she was great in court. She was phenomenal in court, and that's what I needed because my case was going to go to court no matter what because of high conflict. And I was against that. Here I was thinking that if we just to give him this, give him this, give him this. He wasn't. He wanted the show. He wanted to go to court. And I needed an
Right.
attorney that could be in court to perform well in court because that's where I was going to end up was court. And she performed well.
Right. And I think, a lot of times what I'm telling clients these days is the first step is to consume information. There's
Mhm.
so much free information out there.
Free.
I mean,
Mhm.
obviously you can get, divorce coaches, which are well worth the money by a mile. Counselors are super important. Your
Yeah.
lawyer is super important. There's multiple professionals who are important to the
Yeah.
process to help get you through it. But even just consuming at the outset as much free information as you can so you can, answer some of those question marks, right?
Right. And that's what I wish I would have had. And that's why I've created, small little micro classes for people
Yeah.
just to come and just listen, and I'm not saying everything I'm going to say is going to be perfect for your case, but man, is it going to create your brain to start firing off of like, man, I haven't thought of that in the future. Cause so many people get divorced when their kids are so young,
Right.
4, 5, 6, 9. You're a first time parent. You don't even know what 10, 11, 12, 15 looks like because this is your
Right.
first time through. So you don't even know what to think of in the future, right? So I think just automatically thinking about that parenting plan and what is it going to look like and what do I need to be thinking ahead and what does decision making look like with the two of us? I mean, hell, we're in a hell of a lot of water right now with this joint, or going to court. How are we going to do joint later and what does that look like? And just really understanding what you're getting ready to be handed to you
Right.
is just so critical. I mean, I had so much hindsight afterwards of like so excited when I got my parenting plan. It's 4 pages and I'm like, I'm divorced. 4 pages. And then I went to
Yeah.
use it like a week later and I'm like, well, where the hell's that at? Oh, it was
Yeah.
just assumed. What? Like,
Yep.
I just spent $100,000 to assume what?
Yep.
I mean, the gut wrenching punch to the face. I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then that's when I was like, I have to change this. I have to make people so much better educated about what to fight for, where are the priorities, where's the fires to put out, what are the hills to down, what are the hills to let go? Who gives a shit about that in the long run?
Right.
And really just know that you walk away from it. You're not going to get everything, but walk away from it at least educated about what you did
Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
and what you're fighting for. I just see so many people like don't know what they're even fighting for.
And I tell people in these cases that, like, look, you have to remember your parenting plan or any order you arrive at, any agreed upon order, because most of these cases, even the most contentious ones, are settled at the end of the day. Very few of them
Yep.
are actually tried before a judge. You put on evidence, you put records before the judge. The judge issues a decision, makes a determination. That's rare. Even
Right.
the cases that are extremely litigious, most of them are settled. But I have many cases where people say, "Oh, we're fine, everything's in agreement. We're going to have a one-page order. We're going to have a as agreed upon, right?"
Until
It's
somebody
assumed.
starts screwing somebody.
Exactly. I always say until there's a new boyfriend or girlfriend or new
Mhm.
husband or wife, and they say your ex-wife's a bitch or your
Yep.
your ex-husband's an asshole. Once
Absolutely.
you start getting there, now you're going to start taking that, as you said, 4-page document and
Mhm.
trying to
Use it.
decipher exactly what's happening in a multiplicity of circumstances are going to take place over and stuff you can't possibly provide for over the next, 18, 21 years, right?
Yeah.
So I always suggest have a solid floor. That's your order. That's your parenting plan. The ceiling is as much as the two of you can agree to outside the order, above and beyond the order.
Right.
But try to leave as few things as is possible to the it's automatically assumed or as agreed upon, right?
Right. Well, and that's why I help people kind of get their thoughts on paper. And I
Yeah.
want people to, know what it's like to get their kid from diapers to diploma. Here's all the big events that are going to happen. Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and at least like have dialogue and mediation. Let's go ahead and at least talk. Let's see if we can get down at least some nuts and bolts down,
Yeah.
before we just sign this really vague. Because if you sign a vague agreement, you're guaranteeing one of two things. Either A, you're going back, which costs you money. Nobody's going to help represent you for free. Courts aren't
Right.
going to let you show up for free. Or secondly, it's just going to leave you at the hands of a high conflict person determining what you're going to do on all those decisions in the future. Those
Yep.
guaranteed, those are your two odds if you do not get a detailed parenting plan that gets you from diapers to diploma. And I think that's why I love what I do because I've thought of everything. I mean, my kids are now part of my business. They're in their 20s and they're able to say, man, I wish we would have done this better. I wish you and dad would have, fixed this. And so I've created this,
Yep.
methodology is what I call it of like how you deal with high conflict people. And some people will say, well, how do you predetermine these decisions? I'm like, look, here's where I die on this hill. I would rather have a decision I'm somewhat like, well, I'm not really excited about that decision, but at least it's a decision because I
Right.
don't have to go back to court and I don't have to talk to his ass.
Right.
So I might not love the decision, but it is a decision. And I'm at least like, I can move on with my life. And if we're
Right.
in good terms, for whatever reason, somebody bumped their head, and that's great. You can talk it out, put your parenting plan on the shelf and never look at it. Agree with them, talk it out.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yep.
follow the parenting plan if you're getting along. But if you're
Yep.
not getting along, that decision's already been made. Sorry, love to talk to you, Steve, but I can't. We're going to follow page 17 of our parenting plan and just do what that says. If you don't like it, take me back to court, but we're going to do page 17.
And I say to clients, I say, look, I sincerely hope you take this 15-page custody agreement, okay, and you put it in a drawer and
Oh,
never
yeah.
need to look at it again. That is my sincere hope.
Yeah.
But in the
That is
event that that does not happen,
right.
you're going to be happy that we played everything out in this agreement. So
Yeah.
listen, with these long contentious cases, and I've had many of them, I'm sure you've dealt with many as well. How do you get people to see that the goal is not just to get out? Because that's what it becomes. If you're
Yep.
you're in a contentious situation, the
Mhm.
only goal at that point for clients is I want out.
Yeah.
The success means out. And
Yep.
I get it. But how do you get them to have the patience, have the resilience to see it's not just out, it's out in a way that's the
Plan.
right way, right?
With a
In
plan.
terms of
Right.
your agreement, your resolution, your split of assets, those sorts of things.
Well, I think that's where divorce coaches are so critical in these high
Yeah.
contentious divorces is because you have a job. Your job is the
Yep.
law to advise on the law. My job is to keep the emotions under wraps, to keep you focused on the goal, to keep you regulated, to keep you parenting during this whole process, keep you
Yep.
proud of yourself during this whole process. Divorce coaches are there to listen to you, bitch and bitch and bitch and complain
Yep.
and be emotional. And we take all that, we put it into 3 or 4 bullet points and we send that to your attorney and we take
Yep.
all the emotion out of it. I think we have to keep them. My phrase to my clients all the time is, what would your 6-year away self say? If your 6-year
Yeah.
away self would be proud of
Ooh,
this
good phrase.
decision
I
of
like
giving
that.
up, then let's give up on it. But if your 6-year away self is going to go, bitch, why'd you walk away from that? Why
Yep.
did you give up that retirement? Why did you walk away from that house?
Yep.
All because you were emotional, making an emotional decision. You
Yep.
know, so if they don't have good family to give them their sounding board, 6 year way self talk, then that's where divorce coach comes in to say, hey, we got to look at what your long term goals are, and if your long term goals are to afford a car for the kids and to pay for college, then we got to make sure we do go after half of his retirement, because you are entitled to half of his retirement, and he's not going to give it to you later. The only time to get it is now. So I know you think you're being a bitch for going after this because he's telling you you are, but you're entitled to it. So let's not get that emotional about it. Let's do the business decision that your 6 year way self will be proud of.
And I'll do you one better. Your kids are entitled to it. I think I have
Exactly.
so many cases, and I actually did a few pieces on this on
That's a good
TikTok and
point.
Instagram. I'm like, look, there's so many parents, primary parents, that I say, well, I'll just waive child support. I don't need the money. Okay. So how are you going to answer? And listen, we've represented some high asset clients,
Yeah,
but that's the small percentage of what most divorce lawyers do.
right.
You're basically bread and butter people who, varying
Yeah.
degrees of wealth, but they're relying on money to pay bills. So do you want to be in a situation where your kid wants to go to hockey camp and you have to say, no, I can't afford it? Do you
Right.
want to be in a situation where your kid says, I want to do an Ivy League school? And you would have had the resources with the retirement or with the support to be able to do it, and you have to tell them no.
Well,
You know?
I'm getting clients right now who are like, Sam, he said if I give up the money part, whether it be extracurriculars or child support or his retirement or whatever, that he'll give me the kids. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, sister,
Yeah.
you give up that money now for the kids. There's nothing saying in a year from now he doesn't go, I want the kids now. And
Yep.
now you just walked away from all that money a year ago, but now he's fighting for the kids again, and there's no reason he can't get them, you
Yeah.
know? So, I mean, to put kids in money, but that's what high conflict people do. High conflict people will threaten you and say, I will take every penny. You will be paying me by the end of this, and I'm going to take your kids, and you will never see them again. And then me as a mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, well,
Yep.
take whatever you want. I just want my babies.
Yep. And it's all tools. They
Oh,
use all of
mm-hmm,
these things as a tool,
mm-hmm,
and the end game is to get at you. The
mm-hmm,
end game I find in these situations is not necessarily to get something. Well, if I give them X, then they'll be great. They
mm-hmm.
just want to fight for Y, and if I just give it to them, we'll be fine.
Yep.
No, 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 no.
Gosh, I
They're
did that
doing
for
this
8 years.
because they want the conflict.
Oh, they
That's
love it.
what they want. They
I
don't
mean,
want the end game. They want the
kryptonite.
conflict.
The kryptonite. My ex-husband
Right.
loved to know that he had my attention,
Mm-hmm.
and that then my attention was on him and not my children. So I was emotionally dysregulated when I was around my kids,
Mm-hmm.
short-tempered, short-staffed, just go play. Like I'm talking. Like
Right.
I had a bad day. Like I was always like that. 8 years I lived like that
Right.
because he'd just pick at the scab just enough to get it to start bleeding, and then I'm hemorrhaging at my house, right? And
Yeah.
I fell for it. Oh, that's why I say, he was a fuck up, but so was I. Like I
Yeah.
allowed him into my mind. I allowed him into my home. I allowed him into my day to day. I tell my clients all the time they have 4 corners of their life. I allowed him in all 4 corners.
Right.
Like I allowed him to micromanage me from a distance, from outside.
Right.
He wasn't even in my home, but he had complete control of me because I was so scared of court, because he told me he'd take me back, which he did.
Yep.
He would, he'd have me tied up with lawyers, which were very costly. So I was broke, like
Yeah.
he fucked with every part of my life, and I allowed it until I woke up, until
Right.
I figured out like, okay, this has got to stop. Like this is ridiculous, and then once I figured out boundaries and self-love and self-care, and I got into
Right.
therapy, and I realized this was a game to him, and he was beating me big
Yeah.
time. And what I
Yeah.
didn't realize was I don't need to play the game. I just need to remove myself from the game.
Right.
Just
So
remove
how do you
myself.
not allow them to do that to you? I mean that, and that's the $1 million question. That is
Yeah.
so difficult in it to say stop and
Mhm.
not allow them to do that to you.
Well, I think first it's learning boundaries that you've never had before. I've
Yeah.
never had anybody in my life I needed to put a boundary up with,
Right.
like if the father of my child is calling me, I'm going to answer. But what
Right.
I didn't realize, because everybody's telling me to, my lawyer's like, be the good client and make sure there's nothing
Right.
that says you're the bad co-parent. So if he calls, answer him. If it's about the kids, answer him. So here he'd call me 7 or 8 times while I have the kids present with me. So am I parenting? No. So he would put me on the heels of, I'm talking to him or fighting. And then once we're on the phone, it's a fight. It's an argument. It's
Yep.
now, and he wrapped me into it. So I think learning boundaries first and foremost, like you have to
Yeah.
know that he can wait. The kids are with you. They're safe. You don't
Right.
have to respond with him.
Right.
Learning boundaries is a monumental step. It's super hard because as soon it's like a child, you take away their toy because it's bedtime. What are they going to do?
Right.
Scream, kick, throw a fit, cry, tell you that they don't like you. And then you're like, well, I don't want you to not to like me. So here's your toy back. If you give that
Yeah.
toy back, you're not setting any boundaries, right? And so your ex
Right.
of high conflict is the same way. It's going to be ugly when you throw your first boundary down. They are going to revolt. They are going to whine, kick, scream, and cry and call you names. But as
Right.
soon as they realize that you're not giving on that boundary, they're going to move on. The sad part is they move on to your children, but they're at least going to move on from you.
Yeah. And I think here's the thing. Remember, from a lawyer's perspective, do you have to communicate with the other side as a co-parent, especially if you're immersed within custody and visitation litigation?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, 100%
Yep.
you do. So
Yep.
the lawyer saying that, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But are you required to communicate on their terms?
Right.
Meaning, I
Right.
would say you don't need to pick up the phone, text
Nope.
them,
Nope. Exactly.
email.
Oh
So
my
then
gosh.
what you have
Mm-hmm.
is, if
Documentation.
it's apparent from the communication that they're only doing it to harass and annoy, then you're in the area where you don't
Patterns.
have to respond.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
don't have to answer,
Right.
and they
And
can go nuts about it.
right.
And
But
it,
I
you
think
know,
it's that low. You got to remember that that woman has left that toxic. My clients are mostly women.
yeah,
Sometimes smart men hire me. That's for sure.
yep,
Uh, these women that have just been abused are leaving this toxic relationship where they were talked down to, belittled, the whole time. And then the second they're out on their own, start to like really take care of themselves and single parent. Then all of a sudden, boom, he knocks her down again with the words. You're like, okay, how
yeah,
do I again, it's this mind game of like, we sit there as moms and we're like, how can we get him to just be nice to me and move on? I am the mother of his children.
right.
Like, just be nice. And there's nothing there that you will be a target forever. I am a target still 19, 20 years out. I'm still
Uh,
his target. Call him today. He'll tell you I'm the biggest piece of shit that's walked the earth. And that's fine. That's his opinion. And he's entitled to that. He's
and
entitled to that.
and I always wonder, like I say, like at some point you must have loved this person on the other side. How in the hell do you
I don't
get to
think
the
so.
point where you do this? And okay,
I don't think so. I think there's certain personalities out there that have had so much childhood trauma that they're
yeah,
incapable of true, authentic kinship and love. I really do. I think it was a facade that he wanted. I think it was
mm,
he wanted me to have, he already had a child that he needed care for. I filled a role. I filled a position.
interesting.
I made him look like a typical family, husband, wife, two jobs, kid, picket fence, all the bullshit. I filled a spot. I don't know that that man ever loved me. He loved controlling me. He loved me being his possession, his pawn and everything. But I don't think there's certain personalities. I've been doing this a decade now, and there's just personalities from deep rooted trauma or issues.
Yeah,
Their love is not there. They don't love animals. They don't love humans. They don't love their family. They don't love them. I mean, they don't love themselves. How can you really
yeah,
love someone
yeah. That's a
when
good
you
point.
don't love
Yeah,
yourself? I
yeah,
think
for
they're
sure.
incapable. I think he enjoyed having sex with me. I think he enjoyed the position I held for him and the status he had with me.
Right,
I don't think he truly loved me. And when I left, he went back to ground zero again and nobody to fill that spot, and
right.
it's just, I think there's just people out there that are incapable. And when there's people like me, like, oh, let me fix you, let me go
Yeah,
help you, then that's what I did in co-parenting too. Let me help you make this easy. Look how great I'm being to you. I'm
yeah,
giving you everything. I'm bending over backwards. And he just abuse, abuse, abuse. Somebody
yeah,
asked me on a podcast the other day, she said, will I always be the target? Yes,
yeah,
always. You have to accept that role and
yeah.
and determine how you'll let it affect you.
Right. So if you were to give advice to people who are trying to find their life partner right now and they're dating, either never been divorced or even post divorce, what should they be looking for to that maybe you've learned now after having been through the process to avoid ending up with a person like that?
Know yourself and know that you're not going, it's knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Know your childhood stuff, know your quirks, know your passions, know your love language, know your personality, know what you're good at, know what you're
Yeah.
bad at, know how you communicate, know yourself first. But I think during a thorough, and I don't say investigation, but just get to know this person and don't
Yeah.
invest unless you're getting equal investment back. And that was one thing that I think, if I look back on all the narcissists I ever dated, I invested way more than they invested,
Yeah.
hoping that my investment, they'd like see all that I'm giving you. Like,
Yeah.
what, you'll give it back, right? Like at some point you'll give it back,
Yeah.
right? And it's just, I undervalued myself. I didn't have a lot of self-worth. and for whatever reason. And so having good self-worth and then really just seeing like, are they giving me what I want? And early on, I would say early on in the relationship, if they're not giving back the investment that you're putting forth, walk, because there's somebody like, my unicorn and my business partner, Leah, she has a unicorn now, like men that just know their value and they know they married value. And it's like rock star. It's amazing when it all aligns. But when you have somebody that doesn't have value and doesn't think they do, they're not bringing anything to you.
And you think do you think you know it when you see it?
Yeah. I really think like,
I mean, that unicorn.
I didn't know Jared had all that like himself put together the way he did. He was fun and it was easy. Everybody says love shouldn't be hard. It wasn't hard for us. It was easy.
That's what I always say. It's easy.
It was
I was
easy.
having a conversation just the other day about that. I said, the way you know it's the one is it's easy. You don't get that anxiety, that stress, that aggravation.
Like, what is he thinking? What does he feel? Like, what did he mean by that? Like, he was easy. He was easy from day one. I mean, it just kind of fell together. I mean, he's a lot younger than me. So I was like, this isn't going to happen. Right. Like this is just a bizarre, easy, fun little thing. Right. And 2 kids later in a marriage, here we are, but it was easy. And that's because he had his shit together on his own. And I had my shit together at that point. And then it just like, good. This is what Lee and I say at any point in time, though, if Jared decides to leave or I decide to leave, guess what? I'm 100% good. I'll be like, oh man, that stinks. But I'm not missing a fucking beat. My life will still perform. I will still show up every day. I will still love myself. I will still function. I'll still have a job. I'll have great kids. Like I ain't missing anything. I'm never going to let anybody ever pull me into that dark corner that I was in through that whole divorce and co-parenting journey. It was a dark corner that many people stay in the whole time and never see the light on the other side. And I just hope by listening to me, like 8 years, Dennis, I kissed a man's ass, was friendly. I showed my kids to be a people pleaser, to an abuser. It took a lot of healing to overcome that, but I've overcome it. And I now know that there's women out there that are just like me. They're good people. They just want right by their kids. They want to be that parent and co-parent and be that awesome blended family, but just not in the same house. But not all of us get that. Some of us are going to have high contingencies and divorce that's just miserable, and co-parenting where you're in opposite ends of the soccer field. And that's okay too. That's okay. Your kids will be fine. They will be. If they have one solid, just rock star, self-worth loving fucking parent, they will be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Give yourself grace. I think that's the message. Hey, listen, Sam, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your insights. Really appreciate you. Please tell my listeners, how can they work with you? What resources can they reach out to you for? I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge and information to offer to the general public and for anybody who's going through a contentious divorce. So give us the information.
I think follow me anywhere, Samantha Boss, or The Ugly Truth of Divorce on any platform. I'm absolutely everywhere. But I think, again, if that educational piece spoke to you, I have a masterclass with a workbook where you just learn about all things parenting plan, diapers to diploma. I think that is a money saver, $97. You're going to walk away with 2-3 hours of content of just listening about all things kids. I also help put people's ideas about their parenting plans down on paper to take to their attorneys and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's a rough draft of what I think I want for the kids. And then the best part that I think, if you don't know where to start, is just get inside of our Next Chapter membership, which is just a monthly membership for moms who are going through these high contingency divorces, horrible co-parenting journeys, leaving an abusive relationship, where we're rebuilding. We're teaching you finances and fitness and how to single parent, how to discipline your kids, boundaries. We're teaching everything. So there's something for everybody, no matter where you're at in the journey. But if anything, like you said, follow my free content. Just listen to me tell stories and educational pieces to where you're not alone. If you look in that comment section, people are like, where were you 5 years ago? I needed you 10 years ago. Where were you?
100%.
Just speak the truth. Like, not everybody has the fairy tale matching shirts, still doing Christmas together story. I wish that for everybody, but that's not the case. Radical acceptance. Some of you have a shit case going on and it's going to be high conflict. You might as well accept it. Don't resist it, but know the methodology on how to deal with it is critical.
Yep. So where can they find you on TikTok? You're on TikTok, Instagram, other places. Where can they find you on TikTok and Instagram? I love the videos.
Yeah. The Samantha Boss. And just make sure it's me. Because, there's a lot of people stealing my stuff, as you know, probably.
Me too. Me
too.
Yeah.
Like, come on, you guys. Like, just give me some credit. But The Ugly Truth of Divorce, or The Ugly Truth of Co-Parenting. And you're going to see me just spewing the absolute truth about some of the shit stories that my clients have, and mine too. you
We'll
know?
call it dropping
So,
knowledge. Thanks
exactly.
again so much, Sam. Really appreciate having you. And for everybody who tuned into the podcast, thanks again for tuning into the DRV Law Show. Very happy to have you. Have a great day. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the DRV Law Show. And remember, live the best life you can, know you're worth it, and stay patient. You will find it. Have a great day, everybody.